Community Tech Network has been around since 2008. Actually, we started as an all-volunteer group in 2007, and then became a nonprofit in 2008. And we work entirely in partnership with nonprofits and government agencies such as yours. We don't serve the public directly except through a referral process, as Laura Kate and I were just discussing. And we provide all kinds of services. So we provide services for both the learners, your clients, and customers. We also provide services to you, the organizations that serve these communities. Our curriculum and our instruction have been available in English, Spanish, Chinese, both Cantonese and Mandarin dialects, a lot of different languages. And we provide all sorts of digital equity services, such as access to low-cost devices or free devices, access to low-cost or free internet services, digital skills training, training for your own staff, and information about useful sites and applications for folks who want to get on the internet, because our mission is to transform lives through digital equity. So we work in all the services that will help people start using the internet safely and confidently in their everyday lives. And so today we're going to talk, Sabrina's going to tell you a little bit about the grant that we've been working with for, gosh, I guess about longer than that, probably more like 7 or 8 years now, and the funding opportunity, how to do the application. And then she'll talk a little bit about how we can help you with your application process and the services you'll be applying for funding for. And then we'll talk a little bit more about next steps. You can put your questions in the chat as we go, and we will have questions at the end. So thank you so much for your time and attention. Sabrina, would you like to introduce the opportunity?
Of course. Thank you, Carrie, so much. So CPUC has been funding programs to bridge the digital divide for quite some time already. Specifically, they have been funding infrastructure projects since 2008 and adoption projects since 2015. For broadband adoption, which cover access, device, and training, the available funds for fiscal year 2023 to 2024 is 20 million. And then they just announced earlier this month that for fiscal year 2024 to 2025, the fund is actually increased to over $36 million. They do have a semi-annual application cycle. The upcoming deadline is July 1st, 2024, just a little bit over a month from today. And if you're not able to meet that deadline, you can always apply for the next cycle, which is January 1st, 2025, and then so forth. So every 6 months, they will accept new applications. I will give more information about the project timeline shortly. So this is a brief introduction to this great funding. So let's take a deeper look at what projects are eligible under this funding. So what they have is called the Broadband Adoption Account. You can apply for funding for broadband access projects, BA for short, they call it BA projects. For example, you can provide free Wi-Fi at community centers or other public spaces. You can also include community outreach and call centers that will increase broadband access and adoption. For CTN, we focus on digital literacy projects, or DL for short. These grants funds training and devices. Training is required for the program, and it can be done in various formats. It can be group classes, it can be one-on-ones, in person, or virtual. It can also be a self-paced. What that means is that the participants may complete some online training modules in order to meet the requirement. The key is that the requirement is that they have to, each participant has to receive at least 8 hours of training in order to be counted as a complete for the program. And this is very important. The 8 hours is very important. And I'll explain it a little bit more on this next slide. So if you have any questions, you can type it in the on the chat, and we'll cover those at the end. Okay, so this is a very informative slide. So I'll spend more time on it. So as mentioned before, the fund will fund for both devices and training. For budgeting purposes, the project cost is split into two main buckets. So on the left, you see the devices. And then in the middle is the program implementation. That means that anything that's not the devices is included in the program implementation. So devices will include those that will be used in the classroom, as well as devices that the participants can take home. When I say take home, that means that they can keep it for good after the program. It's not a loaner, it's something that they can keep for good. CPUC has specific guidelines on how much they will reimburse for these devices. For example, the take-home devices, CPUC will reimburse up to $300 per device and up to $40,000 per project. If you use the maximum amount of $300 per device, with the 40 grand, you can get 133 devices. But if you go for a lower cost model, for example, a $200 Android tablet, you can have actually up to 200 take-home devices for your program. And then you can only give 2 devices maximum per household. Another thing to note is that CPUC will only reimburse for the device if the recipient is low income. If their income is higher than the threshold, they can still come to the training. The participant can still receive training, but the take-home devices is not reimbursable. That means that your organization will have to look for other funding sources to pay for those devices, or those learners will just not receive one when they complete the course. Final thing to note about take-home devices is that smartphone is not eligible, because there's the Lifeline program to get for people to get smartphones. So this digital equity program is only for devices like laptops, Chromebooks, tablets, iPads, Android tablets, things like that, not smartphone. Okay, so for in-classroom devices, this is especially helpful if you want to renew your computer lab at your community center, or if you don't have one already, you can use this funding to create one. The in-classroom devices can be laptops, Chromebooks, tablets, just not smartphone. It can also include printers, projectors, or a big screen TV if you're going to use it to project slides, screen sharing, or Zoom. So the maximum amount is $750 per device, and $1,250 per project. Okay, so that's everything for devices. So in the middle, we have program implementation. That again is anything but devices, and they will go into program implementation. So that includes program outreach, curriculum development, instruction, program management, commute, printing, and up to 15% can be admin cost. So if you add both devices cost and program implementation cost together, you get a total program cost on the right. And then for CPUC, they also requires a minimum of 15% match. That means they will reimburse up to 85% of the total program cost, and the remaining 15% needs to be self-funded by your organization or by another grant. You can definitely use another grant or funding source to supplement for this program. Okay, and then you see on the slide, it says $477 per participant for expedited review, and over here is $150 $100,000 for or less for expedited review. I will explain more about that on the next slide. Okay. Again, if you have questions or I'm going too fast, please put it in the chat and let me know. Okay. So CPUC has something called ministerial review. What it means is that if a proposal meets these requirements, these listed requirements here, then the reviewing process will be expedited, which is on average, I'll say 3 to 6 months. If your program doesn't meet these requirements, it will usually take longer for them to review and approve. And these requirements are, again, I mentioned it on the previous slide. If your grant request is 150 grand or less, it will qualify for the expedited review. Your nonprofit organization has existed for more than a year, and the applicant has at least 1 year's experience conducting a digital literacy program or broadband access program, or if they have completed at least one of these programs or projects. And the organization has a designated person, designated in-person or virtual space for the training. It can also be a virtual space. So if you have like a designated Zoom account that you can do virtual classes, or if you have a website where you host all your virtual training materials, that will fulfill that requirement. And then for digital literacy projects, the proposed project cost, if it is under $477 per participant, that is exclusive of the in-person and take-home computer. It's just the implementation cost is $477 or less. You will also qualify for that expedited review. And then these two are for the broadband access projects or the call center projects, which not going to go into details about those. So, and then the application meets all the other broadband adoption account application requirements, which is in the application itself. But these are the overall requirements if you want to go for the expedited review. Okay. So for the application itself, there are 3 components. The application, which is an Excel workbook. There are 2 tabs on the workbooks, some general information about the project, and then a very detailed budget plan is required in the application. And then project work plans, which is a Word document. It has 2 parts. One is for the ramp up period, and another one is the program implementation period. And for these, CTN can provide samples because we have done many of these before. So we can give you examples and we can work with you to adjust and for your particular program. And then the third part, sorry for the typo, it should be a 3 here. Attachments. They are required for 5 different attachments. A cover letter to explain, why you want to apply for the grant. Curriculum and outreach materials samples. So these are not necessarily the one that you're going to use for the program. It's just some examples. Like if you have done in the past some digital literacy program and you have a curriculum for that, you can include that. If you don't have something like that, we can provide some sample. It is optional, but it's recommended to provide endorsements from the community. For example, maybe you have some learners who participated in your previous program and maybe a quote from them or like a letters of support from the community. Those will be recommended. And then another attachment required is the IRS nonprofit tax exempt ruling. I think there will be some documentation. I don't remember the exact document, but there's a form that you will have to provide to prove that you're a nonprofit status. And finally is the notarized David, that they will have a template. They have CPUC provide a template. You just have to fill it out. And here I have some download links for the actual package, the application spec instructions, some steps to fill out the workbook, the application workbook, and some frequently asked questions, administrative manual for the program once you get the grant approved. So all of these are provided actually by CPUC websites, but these are the link that you can go to it conveniently for. So after the presentation today, I will share this presentation along with the recording, so you don't have to worry about getting all these links. They will be included in the slide deck, all right? Okay, so for the application itself, it will ask for some very basic information. If you have going to have a partner, you will put, like, for example, you can put Community Tech Network as a partner, and then where the classes are going to be held, or are they going to be online? So you specify it on the application. Who are you going to serve with this grant? Are you going to focus on older adults, or is it for parents, or what kind of, what's the target audience? And then the project location, which can be different. So the project locations needs to be accessible to the community being served. For example, we have done project that are for like a city, but then the classes can be online, or the classes can be another better example will be for a housing site. They may provide a program for the residents, but then if their housing site can be open to the public, meaning that maybe the residents can bring in a friend or a caregiver and to participate in the program, that's also acceptable. Okay, so if the applicant has more than one project of the same type, you don't have to go through separate application. You can just add more tabs in the workbook and then rename the workbook, the tabs appropriately. And then for project description, you will provide a short summary of the project issues the project is proposed to address, and how the project will address those issues. This is basically what the application will ask for, this kind of information. They also have a preference checklist on the application packet. So you just have to answer yes or no to each of these criteria or each line, and then provide some details. For example, if you're serving the low income with the program, the community median household income is at or below certain limits, not only care limits, but I think they have, if your audience, they have kids that going to have received free lunch programs, the national lunch programs at school, those are also qualified, make them qualify for that low income threshold. And then if your population, they have low education level, you can say more than 50% of the residents at this household or at the city have only a high school diploma, something like that, just to for the details of where you fulfill this preference. Limited English. So if more than a certain number of residents have limited English proficiency, so you can also list something like this. You have to say yes to this preference checklist. Rural, if you are serving a rural area, then there's also say yes to the preference checklist and provide more information. Projects has community support, endorsement, and or partnership. So yes or no. If you partner with CTN, that's definitely a yes. Community with some other demonstrated disadvantage which affects broadband adoption. Coordinate with other public purpose programs and funding sources. So again, you just have to say yes or no to this list and then provide more information. Now the project timeline. So I've mentioned already earlier that the deadline to apply for this upcoming cycle is July 1st, 2024. So the application is due by then. And then after that, maybe within 2 to 3 months, sometimes 4 to 6, it depends. But usually in Q4 2024, you will receive, like, you will hear from CPUC whether you're awarded. You'll receive the notification, and then you will have to reply and say you accept the award. After that, you will go into the 6 months ramp up period where you will prepare for the program launch. If you're partnering with your another organization like CTN, you will maybe like start working with them, have a detailed program plan sketched out. Also, you may use the ramp up period to maybe shop for the appropriate device. Or before you do that, actually, we recommend you do like a needs assessment, a thorough needs assessment with your potential target to see maybe what devices that they are interested in, what will be most useful for them, and then maybe what are they most interested to learn. So that will be like a needs assessment that we recommend you do during the ramp up period. And so after the 6 months of ramp-up period, you would go into the program delivery or program implementation phase. That is up to 2 years. So whatever you say that you will complete in your proposal, let's say you say that you will want to train 100 people for your program, you will have up to 2 years to finish that. Okay. And then on the top, you will see that you will have 3 different opportunity to receive reimbursement along with a report. So at the end of your 6 months ramp up period, you're required to provide a ramp up report. You will send along all the invoices up to that point, along with your budget plan and actual comparison at that time. And then you will be able to reimburse for your expenses during the ramp-up period, for the ramp-up period. And then at the end of year 1, you have another opportunity to submit a progress report along with invoices and the reimbursement request. And the last one will be when the program is over. You will have to submit a final report and the reimbursement request. Okay, so that is a typical program timeline. So some of our partners, they have done digital literacy program before. They have some experience and it didn't take them 6 months to ramp it up. It can be shorter. So if you finish your ramp up in 3 months, let's say, you can start the program delivery right then. You don't have to wait the 6 months. It's just up to 6 months. Then you can do the ramp up period. For the ramp-up period. And then some of our partners also don't take 2 years to finish their goal, to reach their goal. So maybe just 1 year or maybe 1.5 years. And then you can, definitely just submit the report for 1 year and then your completion, the final report at 1.5 years at this point. Okay. One very important thing to stress is the grant is reimbursed at performance-based reimbursement. What that means is that I'll use the 100 learners as an example again. So in your application, you said that you're going to teach 100 learners, but in the end, you're only able to reach 80 or only 80 of them complete the 8 hours of training. That's considered completing the program. Then you will only be reimbursed for a partial, not the full amount of the grant. That's because you didn't reach the goal. So this is what they call the performance-based reimbursement. So this is very important, okay? Now, how can CTN help your organization? We provide direct services. What that means is that we will be able to provide you with your learners for in-person training if they're in the Bay Area. Currently, we only have instructors in the Bay Area, immediate Bay Areas. I think we have worked with 7 out of the 9, 7 or 8 counties in the Bay Area. We do in-person training, drop-in support workshops, structured group classes. We also have, if we don't have an instructor in your community, we can always offer virtual training that can be one-on-one, remote classes, Q&A sections, and also webinars. Okay. But CTN can also support your organization with capacity building. You can also think of it as maybe professional development for your team. In 3 different areas we can support you. So we can help you provide support with program oversight and a lot of different resources. Because we have done this for 16 years, we have like a client intake forms, we have the needs assessment that we can share with you. We can share the template with you so you can customize it for your needs. We also have internet connectivity resources, device acquisition, configuration, and distribution. For example, we have like a checklist how you can configure your device before class or before the training for your particular learners. We also have experience with the program documentation and specific reporting requirement for CPUC, so we can assist you with the reporting. We also have the train-the-trainer instruction. So if you have a staff or a volunteers who is eager to take on the training to work with the learners directly, we can provide them with the training that they need, whether they're going to teach in a group setting, a classroom setting, or whether they're going to work with the learners one-on-one. We have different pathways your staff or the volunteer can go through. And then we have licensable curriculum. We have created curriculum in different languages for different devices, Chromebook, Windows laptops, tablets, iPad, and in these different languages. So we have to reinvent the wheels or create something new that we already have. And if you don't see something that existing that you can use, you have like another device that's not the same model or not the same type, we can customize a curriculum for you, or maybe a different language for you. Okay, and this is some quote that some of our partners say working with CTN. For example, we work with Center for Elders Independence. They have 6 centers in the East Bay. We have been working with them for, I think, since 2020. So we have been providing them with quality instruction in 6 different languages and great support under the leadership of the program management team. And we have worked with the public library in the city of San Diego, and we made it easy for them to do all the reporting and reimbursement. So they do the reporting themselves, but we help them like from the get-go, what kind of documents or what kind of supporting documents, what kind of materials they need to keep track of. Then by the end of the program, then we have all the necessary documents that is needed for the reporting. Okay, so some best practices for organizations if you're considering to apply for this grant. First one, understand the limitations and the requirements of the grant. So hopefully with this presentation, that's the purpose, to give you some information that help you understand what the grant requirements are and some limitations, like how much the CPUC will reimburse, etc. Second is be strategic and mindful of the number of clients to be served. A lot of times, if you have not done a needs assessment before in your community, you may be guessing how many people you will be able to serve, or how many people that will be interested in such program. Because of the 8 hours requirement, training requirement, some of the learners may not want to stay with the 8 hours. So even though they're really interested in the to receive the device, but they have to commit to the 8 hours. Otherwise, if they just come to once or twice or 1 or 2 hours, you won't be able to get reimbursed by CPUC. We won't be for the devices and the training. So we have to be very mindful about that. Your third one is set clear expectation on program objectives and team responsibilities. Who's going to do outreach? Who's going to do the training? Who's going to keep track of all these attendance, program evaluation, and finally, who's going to do the report and reimbursement? So in order for you to, think through all that, we have what we call the organization diagnostic needs assessment to see where you're at within your organization, in which areas that your strengths are, and maybe in a different area that you will need some more support or resources. And then CTN can help provide those support to you. Okay, so the next step, if you are new partners to CTN, I would like you to we would like you to fill out this work with us form. Again, I will share the presentation deck so you have the link. We will just ask for some very basic information about your organization, and then which will then create like a profile on our end. Then we'll reach out to you, and then we can set up another time to discuss, how we can help you with. For existing partners, you can sign up for an application clinic appointment with CTN. So I have set up some time over the next couple of weeks. Then you can sign up for. Again, you can use this with the sign up link. And then we can discuss, whether you want direct services or capacity. If you're looking for capacity building support, then we can definitely link you up with our team who can support you with that. So this will be the next steps. Okay, I'll open up the floor for questions.
Oh my gosh, I bet you all have a lot of questions. I know Sarah does. Sarah's put some great questions into the chat. One good question she had is, can fiscally sponsored organizations, people without their own nonprofit number, can they also apply using their sponsors nonprofit status?
I think that it will have to be a nonprofit as the grantee to apply.
So yes, the nonprofit
Yes.
can apply on your behalf and then put it
write
into
in as
your
a
budget.
partner.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then she had a question, which I think I know the answer to, but I'm not sure about, which is, do participating organizations need to comply with the Children's Internet Protection Act, CIPA, CIPA, in order to receive reimbursement for the in-classroom devices?
That I'm not sure, because the CTN has been, we work with adults of all ages. We have not worked with children. But I can find out for you, because I know some of our partners, like they have programs for children, and I also have a contact at CPUC where I can email him and get pretty quick answers. So I can.
Okay, so we'll save these questions, and you can reach out to Bill and get the answers. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sarah had one other question, which I'm just going to repeat for the good of the group, which is, if you are working with a contractor who's working with a different CPUC program, can more people use them? I said, yes, of course. We usually work with 8 to 12 partners per funding cycle. So in addition to ourselves, if you're working with a different contractor, they can have multiple contracts with this being paid, because your organization will receive the money, the funding from the California Public Utilities Commission, and then you hire whomever you want to do the work. And so the money will go to your organization and then to your contracted instructors. Madison had a great question too. Madison works for an Italian Community Services. Oh, there's one here in San Francisco. And most of them are older adults, Italian immigrants. So CTN doesn't currently offer our curriculum in Italian or have any Italian instructors. And yet it's something we translate it takes about 2 weeks to translate the curriculum and to hire and train an instructor. So language is not usually a barrier for implementation. The CPUC is extremely interested in funding English language learners and people who are not English language proficient. And so they give us and so that would be part of your ramp up, would be developing the curriculum and hiring and training trainers.
Mhm.
So, and one thing Sabrina pointed out is one of the things that we look for as a partner is our agencies, as she pointed out, that already have a good sense of who is going to be doing the work at their own agency, who's going to be the point of contact, who is going to be helping find the room, recruit the learners, interact with your contractor, whether it's CTN or any other service provider. I think it's really important for your organization to understand at the beginning who's going to do what work as part of the grant, because that always makes programs much more successful. Are there other questions at this point?
I don't know if we have any housing site, like housing
La Marinda
partners.
is a housing site.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so oftentimes with housing sites, I would for before we apply the grant, I would strongly recommend maybe get in touch with the um, resident service coordinator that's on site and to check in with them like for a program like this with a device and training for 8 hours, how many of your residents do you think that will be committing to that kind of participate? Because a lot of housing partners think that um, is giving a free device, 100% of our residents will be interested, and they set a very high goal. But yeah, that's just not realistic. Maybe only half of them, or even less, maybe 30% of the residents will be interested in a program like this. So really, really check in with the people working directly with the clients to get a better sense of how many to set the goal. Mhm.
And that's where it might be helpful to use our own um, client assessment survey, which we would just give you to use anyway, because it has a couple of questions about interest and availability and digital skills level that you could distribute at any time if you don't already have something like that within your own community.
Mhm.